Okay, for part two, Mariah's family. She drove 456 miles this summer. 2/3 of those were through California. How many miles did she drive through California? And like I said before, you're going to take that whole number and we're going to divide it by the denominator. So 456 divided by 3, after I put my computer. 456 divided by 3. 3 goes into 4 one time. So we put the 1 above the 4. 3 times 1 is 3. We subtract, bring down the 5. 3 goes into 15. 5 times, multiply, subtract, bring down. 3 goes into 6 2 times. Now, if it were asking us for 1/3 of 456, that would be the answer. But it's 2/3 of 156. We have to multiply this by 2. Now, I can do it in my head, but we get 304. So this summer, Mariah's family drove 304 miles in California. The California coastline is 3,429 miles long. If Gracie's family traveled down 1/3 of the California coast this summer, how many miles did they travel? Once again, take the whole number, 3,429, divided by the denominator, which is 3. So this is our division problem. And one times 3 is 3. Subtract 1. 3 goes into 12 4 times. Multiply, subtract, down. 3 goes into 9 3 times. So that, and then our numerator is 1, so we multiply times 1 means it's the same thing. So if you got the answer, 1,143 miles, you are correct. Michaela and Kieran filled sand pails with sand to build a castle. Kieran filled his bucket 5 2/3 times. Michaela filled her bucket 4 2/3 times. How many times did Kieran and Michaela fill their sand pails together? Now, I always like to add the whole numbers first. So we've got 5 plus 4 equals 9, and I've got that done. I'm going to leave that there. And then I'm going to do my 2/3 plus 2/3. And unfortunately, that gives us an improper fraction. Whoops, sorry. So we have to make it into a mixed number. 3 goes into 4 one time with a remainder of 1, and we keep our denominator. So now we're going to add our 9 and our 1 1/3. So that gives us 10 1/3. So they filled their bucket 10 1/3 times. Or 10 times all the way full, and one time they filled it 1/3 of the way. Jeff went to the pool on Tuesday. 78 children were at the pool that day. Jeff noticed that 26 different children jumped off the diving board. What fraction of the children jumped off the diving board? Now, this gets into some division that we have not actually learned how to do in 4th grade with 2-digit divisors. And this is basically how you would do that. You divide what the question, the number that they're asking by the whole group. Now, Mr. Dela Cruz is going to teach you how to do this, but what you kind of look at this number and estimate, is it closer to 30? Is it closer to 20? Well, it's closer to 30. So how many times would 30 go into 78? 30 would go into 78 2 times. But I'm not going to get into that whole division lesson. I'm just going to tell you that I kind of estimated that, yes, 30 would go into 78 2 times, but I'm going to guess that 26 is going to go into 78 3 times, because I'm looking at this 6 and this 8, and I know that 6 times 3 is 8, and I have a feeling that this is not going to be a number with a remainder, so I'm just going to try and see if my guess is correct. Oh, it is. So that means 26 is 1/3 of 78. So that means that 1/3 of the children jumped in off the diving board. All right, the next one is, oh, this one isn't like that, but there's another one that's the 2-digit divisors coming up. Matthew's family is planning the neighborhood cookout. They are in charge of buying meat to grill out. They bought 5.5 pounds of hamburger, 3.5 pounds of hot dogs, and 7 3/4 pounds of steak. How many pounds of meat did they buy for the cookout? There's different ways that you could approach this problem. One way is you could make them, all of these numbers have the same denominator, and then add them together. But I am going to add together the 5/2 and 3/2 first, because they do have the same denominator, and then I'm going to add that to the 7 3/4 pounds. So 3.5 plus 5.5 is going to equal 8 and 2/2. Well, 2/2 is the same as 1. So 5.5 plus 3.5 equals 9. So now all I have to do is add 9 pounds to 7 3/4 pounds. So 9 plus 7 is 16, and then 3/4 pound. There's other ways you can get to that answer, but to me that was the easiest way. Okay, 19. Nick's family traveled 145 miles from Austin, Texas to Houston, Texas to visit his grandparents. If Nick drove for 1/5 of the trip, Nick's mom drove for 1/5 of the trip, how many miles did she drive? We are going to divide the whole number by the denominator. Whole number by denominator. Subtract. 5 goes into 45 9 times. So that means that his mom drove for 29 miles. It is approximately 390 miles from Sacramento, California to Los Angeles, California. If Julie's family visits cousins that live 1/15 of the way to Los Angeles, how many miles from Sacramento do her cousins live? Okay, this is another one with a double-digit divisor, and I don't want to get into trying to teach you that division skill, because I want Mr. Dela Cruz to be able to do it his way, freshly. So I'm just going to do it, okay? So I happen to know that 15 goes into 39 2 times. And then 15 is going to go into 90, 15, 30, 45, 60, 75, 90, 6 times. And I'm just going to double check my multiplication. Make sure I did this right. Times 5 is 30. 13. Okay, yep, I did it right. So that means that 1/15 of 390 is 26 miles. Kristen's family visited the Mall of America in Minnesota. The mall has more than 520 stores. If Kristen's family went inside 1/13 of the stores, how many stores were they able to visit? This is another one with a double-digit divisor. 13 divided by 520. I happen to know that 13 times 4 equals 52. So, and you need to work on, that's something to work on this summer, those multiplication facts, the 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, up through like the 5s. So 13 times 4 you should know is 52, or 14 times 4 you should know is 64. So that is definitely something you should work on over the summer, because when you do get into this double divisor division, that will make it so much easier for you. Almost done. Luke's family plans to travel from Atlanta, Georgia to Orlando, Florida to visit Disney World. The trip is 620 miles one way. If Luke's mom drives 3/5 of the way to Disney and 1/4 of the way back to Atlanta, how many miles did Luke's mom drive? This is a double problem. So let's just figure out that what 3/5 of 620 is. So we're going to take our whole number. We're going to divide it by our divisor, our denominator, which becomes our divisor. Five goes into 12 2 times. 2 times 5 is 10. 12 minus 10 is 2. Bring down the 0. 5 goes into 24 times. But she drove 3/5 of the way to Disney. So that means we need to multiply this by 3. So 124 times 3 is 372 miles. So she drove 372 miles to Disney. Now, we also have to figure out how many miles she drove home. And it's still 620 miles because it was the same number of miles getting there and getting home. And coming home, she only drove 1/4 the way. So our denominator and divisor is 4. 4 goes into 6 one time. 1 times 4 is 4. 6 minus 4 is 2. Bring down the 2. 4 goes into 22 5 times. 5 times 4 is 20. 22 minus 20 is 2. Bring down the 0. 4 goes into 20 5 times. So, and our numerator is a 1, so we don't have to multiply it times anything. So, if she drove 155 miles coming home and 372 miles going to Disney, we just need to add those two together. So that would be 527 miles is what she drove on that trip. Alrighty, and that is the last one. So, work on fractions, work on those multiplication facts above 12 to help you be ready for 5th grade. See you at Zoom.